I said, no, I'm going to get a job at Home Depot to work night shift so I can create and edit during the day, and we can pitch brands throughout the day. So because we force ourselves to go through that, in 1 month's time, we replace our income again for the second time.
Welcome to the Top Tier Podcast, where we take you to new heights in the world of real estate, capital raising, and business entrepreneurship. Meet your hosts, Daniela and Landon, industry experts passionate about success. Join them on the Top Tier Podcast as they share real-world experiences, practical solutions, and strategies to overcome business and real estate challenges. From expert interviews to actionable advice, they aim to inspire and empower you. Subscribe now to never miss an episode.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Top Tier with Landon and Daniela. Today we finally got the Marcos family on to talk about everything they're doing with their media company, how they got where they are, and what interest they have in real estate. I'm excited because we've been trying to get them for a while. So I want to learn all about you guys, and I want to share your story with our audience.
Yeah, I'm super fired up.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for having us. We're just here to talk story and tell our journey. So that's what we do best, I think. I think the appeal for us to most people is that we're married and we're doing business together, and not just like any business, it's entrepreneurship, right? So that's a journey for anybody, whether you're married or not. But then working that with your spouse, everybody's question is pretty much the same. Like, how do you do it without strangling each other or, going into that type of thing. So we got married super young. So there's that, our the foundation was built.
I had just turned 19. So this past July 22nd, we made 18 years.
Oh my gosh, congratulations.
Basically had a full-grown adult.
Yeah. What's crazy too is like, you guys both look like you're still 21, 22 years old.
And you do.
So that's great. That says a lot about, I think, your guys' relationship. It says a lot about how you care about each other, care about your own individual self, and like all of those things, and I've been blessed to be able to spend some time with each of you together and your family and all those little things, and seeing how you guys interact and respect each other. And it is impressive because there is the old adage of when you work together and all the things that can happen. And it's cool to see you guys bucking what I would say maybe would be the trend of working with your spouse and your partner, your wife, whatever it may be, and thriving in what you're doing. And I know it's not exclusive to the Reach Media team that you guys have blown up and created. And it's cool to see that happen, but also with other ventures, with you're looking at RV parks, you're doing lending, you're doing all sorts of various things collaboratively. And we met through a real estate community that we're both a part of. And so I guess let's start at the beginning, maybe of your guys' background of, I guess, maybe where you guys found entrepreneurship and how you came into it collectively or collaboratively.
Yeah. So that story starts with my W-2 in nuclear mechanics with the Navy. I was never in the Navy, but it was a civilian job. And so as you can tell, that's like totally government secure, right? The total opposite of entrepreneurship. And so making the jump was a major mindset issue. But yeah, I'll let Janessa talk about what she was doing while I was doing that. Just prior, I think, to Audrey, right? To our first.
Yeah. Audrey was like one, and I was the stay-at-home mom. I always loved like videography and photography. And I was like always on Instagram. And I said, you know what? I want to be able to learn how all these other moms get free stuff. So basically I kind of like went into Amazon reviews and I started just posting them, even though I didn't have to, but I started like being really creative with it. And then I literally learned, like, his brand started to like reach out to me to want to like collaborate. And I was like, I don't know what this is. And I literally had to learn everything from the ground up. So basically I'm home. I just started homeschooling Audrey in like kindergarten. And then I started being like a content creator, and that started to blow up and my following started to blow up. And I was like, the first year I made $1,000, and I was so proud of that. because it was a Minute Maid campaign, and they reached out and said, hey, we want to work with you. Can you do like a quick video of talking about how you love motherhood? And I was like, after I made that, like the first year, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like extra cash that I can use. Like, this is amazing. And then Jamie was like, hey, just keep doing it. Like, that's amazing. And then
keep doing it.
I saved that money and I bought a better camera. And then I was like, you need to help me now because I'm like trying to be more creative with my photos. So then he started like really helping me. And every time that he would, like more brands would be like, oh my gosh, I love how you did that. I was like, see, when you help me, like I get more jobs. Like, let's go.
Yeah. That's cool. Okay, cool. And then Jamie, so when you came in, you know, she's in the midst of learning and growing and building, or doesn't even know what she's building, but building this like entrepreneurship style, like journey of her own business and marketing and whatnot, I guess. And you're working your full government backed W-2, like protection, security, stabilization. She's at home. Did you have media experience, I guess, or like editing experience and all of those aspects of things to provide her value? Or where was it? Was it moreover just simply, I need help and I need help now?
I was the tech guy. I just knew more about filming and shooting. She definitely has the artistic eye for everything.
Okay.
But I like to kind of geek out on all the gear and stuff. So automatically I just went like, what is the camera I'm supposed to be using? How do I really use this thing? So I dove super deep into it. And so it was kind of a combination of powers here. Is like using her eyes. She would just tell me, this is what I want. It needs to look like this. And then I would say, okay, cool. So I could do it at a higher quality than she could because she wasn't focused on those things. And so with those two things combined, like the brands were just eating it up. And I said, hey, this is kind of cool. Like, why don't we just try to hit some income goals and see if it could actually become a thing, right? And that was super nonchalant. It wasn't like, we need a goal. We have to make $5,000 a month, and then I will think about jumping from my job. It was like, I don't know, I guess if you could make half of what I make, we could probably double it if I worked with you full time. And that was really just the basic guesstimate of why we did that.
That's so cool, man.
That's such a leap of faith, but it's also sounds like it was happening really organically for you. And that's also wild, you know, because I mean, there's we live in this really weird time with the whole work from home. Moms are struggling. We have to have two working parents in a lot of the cities and states that people live in. And it's really hard. It's super, super hard. This idea that like, you can't be there to pick up and drop off your kid. Or if you do have a job, it completely eclipses, like you're not really bringing anything into the household because you're paying for daycare or whatever it is, you know? So it's this space of being a mompreneur or, you know, learning how to capitalize on social media. It's happening with so much force. It's happening everywhere. So it's really cool to talk to somebody who that happened really organically for.
Yeah, like I went to school to actually be a phlebotomist, which is like someone who draws blood and tests. Yeah, that was me. But once I had Audrey, I was like, I can't, like, I just couldn't put her in daycare or anything like that. And when we moved from Hawaii to Washington, I knew like I wanted to stay home, and him making that jump of like, hey, we're going to just move our family. We don't know anyone in Washington. And we did that. Like, that's what it took. And I still homeschool my kids to this day, and it's been a blessing. And they are actually really involved too, as well, with everything.
Oh, cool.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Nice little tax write-off as well too.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
So then, Jamie, so you start working with, I guess, how many years ago was this? When did this all really kind of start to flourish and begin, I guess, when you made your first dollar doing it?
So we started working together probably midway through 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We were going to actually make the jump into entrepreneurship before we moved here to Florida. So the whole situation around that was like COVID was going on, right? 2019. And we were already making plans to move here because my in-laws, her parents had a property here that they were going to get rid of. And they were like, we're going to build a house on it regardless. And we're trying to keep it in the family, but if not, we're just going to sell it. So we're asking around, is this something you guys want to do? The deal for you guys would be you pay for the house and we'll give you the land for free. And it sits on like 5 acres.
Wow.
And so we're like, okay, if we sold the house here, all of that equity would pay for that. And we actually have some options. Like if I wasn't working, we would have like a nice little account just in case for backup. And then with my resume, I could get hired here out at Mayport. I never wanted to be, but that was an option at least. And so we said, cool, we have some options. So we actually kind of took them up on it. And in the meantime, we started considering what are we going to do? And that's when the thoughts of entrepreneurship started kicking in. We put some income goals in place, and then we started making that jump. Anyway, so 2020 is when we did the long drive. We made the jump. We were planning on doing a cross-country trip to Florida. And that's, again, like I said, when COVID was going on. So we second guessed ourselves on photography as our job. We were going to be wedding photographers. And then COVID's going on and nobody can group together. So we're like, that's probably not the best idea.
We're like, yeah, no one's going to gather for weddings.
And so, yeah, literally like weeks before we left, I was like trying to figure out LinkedIn because I already put in my notice for the shipyard. And I was like, maybe I should just put some feelers out. Anyway, I got picked up almost immediately because of my resume here at Mayport as a subcontractor QA. And I interviewed like in a parking lot on the way. Like, I think it was like a Safeway parking lot or something.
Yeah, awesome.
And they picked me up and they're like, hey, when you arrive, let us know. And then we'll bring you in and onboard you and stuff like that. It's like, okay, cool. I got a job, security taken care of. Hated all 2 years of it. Stepped into the mud puddle of my career. So like I told her, we need to recover our idea of entrepreneurship, like in the next 2 years, not the next 5, like immediately.
Right.
So content started going. She just kind of kept doing what she was doing.
Yep.
Long story short, we made it to 2022,
yeah.
January. And that's when they were telling everyone, you're going to get the shot or we're going to fire you, sort of a thing. So I said, well, screw it. Just fire me then. I'll burn my leave and then I'll see what I can do with this thing. I told my boss when he said, you don't have to get the shot anymore. It was like January. So when you come back from Christmas, you can pick up where you left off. And I was like, well, I'm going to try this thing. So I left my job. 2 weeks later on New Year's, we got a notification that her account got hacked.
Well, we had just gotten back home from like my family, like New Year's Eve party or whatever. And I checked my phone and I'm like, had this notification saying that like one of my reels got taken down for music, whatever, copyright infringement or something. And I clicked it and it said that I need to sign in. So I signed in and instantly locked out. I had a pop-up that said, someone from Istanbul, Turkey is trying to sign. I was like, that's not me. And by the time I was like saying no, they had already changed my email. They already changed all of my access to my Instagram account. I even got an email from the hacker saying, I hacked your account. If you want it back, you can pay me like $10,000. I was like, I don't negotiate with terrorists. Like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, she was just upset about it, and I'm on the side like, maybe because like we have no money.
I was like, oh gosh, like he quit it so we could grow it, and like we were making money, and now it's completely gone. Like that was our platform. Which lesson learned: do not rely on only one platform to make money. That is something we learned, and
that was the thing too, though, is that when it stopped, we lost 90% of our clients overnight. They're like, you don't have the following. We can't send you the products anymore.
Wow.
Because I had like over 30,000 followers and it took me like 3 years to build that organically. And I had so many good relationships with these huge brands and had a lot of brand deals and overnight gone.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we really dug into that because we had no choice. We dug into the relationships. We said, hey, I know we don't have the following, but you know what we're capable of. And you've seen our work. We've worked with you before. So we were like scraping the barrel for people we've already worked with that we've proven our quality to. Jeez. And one at a time, they started like coming out and they were saying, hey, this is kind of a thing too. So like we started reaching directly to brands and they're like, oh yeah, I remember working with you. That was great. Let's do it. And so one at a time, we just kept booking. And of course there was that income gap, which is Landon, I told you about my story at Home Depot. And that's why I worked there, because I would refuse to go backwards. So I didn't even call my boss, even though he wanted me to come back. I didn't call him. I said, no, I'm going to get a job at Home Depot to work night shift so I can create and edit during the day and we can pitch brands throughout the day. So because we forced ourselves to go through that, in 1 month's time, we replaced our income again for the second time
with our We Are the Marcos page with only 1,000 followers. We were like, okay, we can do this.
Wow.
Yeah, like, okay, we've learned to, instead of having to offer to use our following, we were like, we're going to use our skills and say we can create content for you. And that's the direction that we went. And we never said, like, we never mentioned anything about our stats or anything. We just showed them the quality of content and they were like, we love it. Like, let's work. And that's how it went.
This is like taboo back then too, because people are like, you got to have over 10,000 followers. You got to have
high engagement, blah, blah.
And so we didn't have any of that. So we were like basically breaking all the rules in people's eyes. Like, how are you making, I think I thought we were going to make like $10,000 that year. And I think we broke past 70,000 that first year. And I was like, what?
So cool.
And in that time, because we were breaking all the rules, people started contacting us. And that's why we started a coaching program for content creators that second half of 2022 into 2023, right when I got into real estate. So we were doing a coaching program during that time, and all of it just lines up like one thing at a time. Is crazy.
And then our following started to slowly grow again because we were doing coaching. So it went from like 1,000 to like 10,000. And now we're a little over 20,000 to this day. And
so we took,
it was really cool.
Yeah. We took the brand work we did, the coaching we did. And then the night that I quit Home Depot, there's another leap of faith. Cause it's like, I think we got it figured out. We're good with the income is coming in. We had like an entire month of it. Repeat clients were coming in for the next month already. And then we went to that meetup. So I quit my job. We went to the meetup that April was hosting that night, April Giuliano, Jacksonville Mastermind. And my friend said, you need to go visit April. She's in sub 2 and you want to learn about it. You should go to their meetup. And we had never been to a real estate meetup before. So we went and she asked us what we do. We told her social media. She's like, oh, you do social media? I need social media. Like,
well,
do you
before
manage?
that, she had asked, she's like, we had said, well, we're originally from Hawaii. And she's like, you're another Hawaiian? And we're like, yeah. And we said, yeah, Tristan and Kamahai told us to come see you. And she's like, Tristan and Kamahai? And we're like, I was like, yeah, I literally like grew up with her. Like, so it was like, she was like, oh my gosh, what a small world. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So that is the crazy thing because we got hired by her that night.
Yeah.
And so now in the social media management.
She was like, you guys are going to manage my page. We're like, oh, we've never done social media management before, but sure. Like, okay.
Yeah. And so that started the wave into what it is today. So Reach Media evolved from that. My journey in real estate started there as well. So, yeah.
Wow. So it's really like what's cool about that too, is like this evolution of, I'm not going to say fail because that's not the right word. Because in entrepreneurship, there's like so many hurdles and so many obstacles and moments of adversity in various aspects. It's non-linear is the probably best way to say it. And you go to this meetup again, pushing, not giving up, not knowing what to expect going to this meetup other than simply just to learn about real estate. And then you end up meeting someone whose life in a weird way, like coexists with yours from a similar relationship all the way across the country. And then it blends into that you guys can make money and do business together. And so now you're offering she's wanting you to run her social media completely. You've never done it. So now you're like, yep, you're taking that next leap of like, this is the next evolution of that. And then now that's so cool how it's now blended into like you're coexisting your endeavors in real estate by working with someone who's a huge leader in our local real estate community. And she's an absolute killer, and being a part of her journey and get to see her processes and what she's doing and her content creation. It's just so cool.
Yeah. I feel like she gave us so much value because like we were learning so much just by every time meeting up with her and asking her, when we're organizing her content, we're like, hey, can you walk us through how you do this? And just by her telling, we're like, oh my gosh, we're learning so much just by being here in your presence. Like, it was amazing. Right. And like to this day, like not only is like she an amazing client of ours over 2 years now, but she's amazing like friend, and like our families get together. And I think the biggest thing that like I took from it is that, you know, we do life together, and it's not just like, oh, we only do real estate. Like I love building relationships with people that we can do life with and like continue to grow that to that next level. And that's been like the coolest takeaway of this all, you know.
It was definitely the epitome of like add value, like lead with value, right? Because like who would have thought that you show up to a meetup to showcase your skills as a social media person, and that would get you in the door to a totally different job, totally different money-making activity, right? And all I knew was like, I don't really know what to offer you, but here's what I do. And we can do photos for you or videos for you or whatever that might be. We can talk about it, but I definitely know that I'm skilled in this area and I want to know more about this area. So if I can offer you that, will you be open to teaching me that? And sure enough, like she was saying, we would show up at video shoots and I would just be like a sponge, just soaking all this stuff in. Like, where do I fit? How do I know about this? How do I buy sub 2 deals? Like all that stuff. And I had the front row seat, you know? And so it's such an amazing exchange to lead with value. And people don't understand that, I think. They think that how could my value that I know right now, which they think is little in comparison going to like a different field. So like, what would I know about real estate? What could I tell her about real estate? Well, I didn't even have to know real estate. I just had to know that there's some sort of value I can add. I just need to find that person and then lead with value, right? So it was a cool thing to go through for us, for sure.
So 2 years ago, you had your first client where you're like doing this representation role, and it's a real estate investor. Super random compared to the brands that you're used to working with and the content you're used to producing. 2 years later, what part of your portfolio is management of real estate investors' social media pages? I'm super curious.
All. All. Yeah. All of them are, well, so there's two different businesses. So we have Owl Media. It stands for Our Wonderful Life Media. So Owl Media is our content creation. And then we have, which is this right here. And then we have Reach Media, which is helping real estate entrepreneurs and business professionals reach a higher level of contact. So
we're still doing it. So right now we're at, and we officially kicked it off like the official Reach, because for the longest time we only had like 2 clients and we weren't really pushing it because I was still focusing 100% on brand collaborations for content creating. And then the beginning of this year, Jamie was like, let's grow it. Let's see how much clients we can get in, like, I don't know, if we can get like at least like 4 within the 6 months. Well, we're now up. We started in January. We officially launched Reach, and we're at 6 clients right now with a possible like 2 more possibly coming on board, which is really exciting. And then I've calmed down on brand collaborations because now our focus is on Reach, and our goal is to at least get 10 clients or more by the end of this year. So it's been really fun. It's frustrating when I see something one way and then he sees something another way, but
yeah. So she's always been the entrepreneur one to like, well, let's go big.
I'm so easygoing, and he's like, no, it has to be scheduled. I'm like, I just go with it. And he's like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because you touched on, Jamie, like a minute ago, of never going backwards was your ideology. And so in many instances, this is similar to that. Not that you'd be going backwards by no means, in the sense of like doing and shifting your content creation towards brand integrations and those things. But it seems like around January-ish or so earlier this year, you guys kind of drew a line in the sand of like, okay, if we're really going to focus our efforts together, we can't be focusing 50-50 towards different things. We need to put our hats into one bucket here. And so, and look where it's flourished to and where it's going. It's so cool to see like those decisions being made and you guys coming together on those decisions. Not easy by no stretch of the imagination, and committing to those and having tremendous success from there, and only going to exceed the goals you've set forth, not from a profit necessarily, but just like from a client standpoint, and then meeting the quality that I know you guys stand behind, having worked with you in the past, but the quality to ensure that, you know, if you have 6 clients right now, when you do have that 10th, that 20th, the quality doesn't go down because you're spread so thin. And so it's so cool to see you guys manifest things, and then take it to that next level.
100%. I think that has been the challenge she's talking about, is just even though we want to take it this far, like you said, the quality is not what keeps us down. It's what keeps us focused on, like, filling the gaps and filling the holes, growing this way versus this way, right? We want to make sure that everybody we have here, okay, cool, we got 6 clients. How do we take care of them the best to our ability? And what is that prime offer that we can not only stick to, but deliver consistently every single time? And then let's take it to 10 clients, and then let's take it to 15. And each time we do it, we fill a new hole. So the growth starts to feel, and what it's felt like in the last few months has been exponential, because I no longer worry about those little operational problems, right? And I know you're familiar with this because you have teams as well. So like when you have that person who's not in that culture and they're just like, well, I'm just going to do the duty, like sometimes that is a lack of quality mindset. They're not focused on doing their best work each day. When you can refill that spot with somebody who is focused on doing their best quality, you just fill a hole. And now instead of leaking out that way, now you can start growing up again. Right.
Undoubtedly. Yeah, completely agree. And you're exactly right, is that it's funny how really going back for me, like in terms of culture on your team, is that when someone is, maybe losing necessarily like motivation or like desire or drive, it comes out right in performance in many aspects. In terms of, content creation, undoubtedly it's visual. You can sense it, you can feel it, you can hear it. And then in the terms of, what I do in the real estate space, it's just lack of deals, lack of acquisitions, lack of purchases. And so, most recently, we just went through exactly that, where unfortunately we had to let go of someone on our team and replace them. And I went back exactly to that. Is like, what is our grassroots foundational culture? What are we based upon? And how can we just live by those means and stick to that culture and require that as a standard within our team? Brought someone onto the team, and within the first week of them being on here, we already have 2 properties in escrow right now because of their efforts and their drive and their passion and all those things. And so it requires those levels of just like looking over those things. And so, yeah, managing those teams, and I'm sure your guys' roles now having evolved and grown outside of just being a singular operation where now you do have a team. So your roles and responsibilities are now evolving too. So maybe touch on that a little bit more, of like where you were everything. And so now you probably have video editors, you probably have other aspects of your business that have pushed you into different, more, I would say probably you're going out and getting more clients and more opportunities.
Yeah, I think it's so funny, the timing of all of this. So our partners, they had to step away. So they're about to have their first baby. And
yeah.
he also owns a wholesale company of his own and a TC company of his own. So they're running that, and one of the things had to go. And for them, this is just a little bit longer term play. So we're actually not starting over,
No.
but we're just taking everything that we've learned from that. We have all the same clients, and now it's just, okay, cool, let's put the editor that we want in place.
Yeah.
So we're slowly taking that out of the hands of the VAs that are doing it now. And again, we're getting to up the quality to our standard and then fill that role. And then we had 2 interviews with managers last week. And I think it's cool because everything that we went through in this first part of the year has geared us up again to this next organic movement that we're making into the next phase, which is just, we get back control of everything that we've wanted to create. And now we get to divvy that out again in the way that we want. So we wouldn't have known how to do that had we not gone through the first phase of this year.
Yeah.
Hiring the basic needs like management role through VAs, basic editing skills through VAs. And now we're like, hey, we can do the same hiring with a person with a higher skill, because now we have more clients to pay for that skill. And then we can go even higher from there. So yeah, it was definitely necessary, but it's just funny that you brought up the scaling portion right when they're, we always joke that they dropped us, we weren't good enough, but they're having
we're
having
on
a baby.
excellent terms. Like I, anyone that says, look, we're having a baby, we need to step away. Like I have full respect. I get it. Like this is your first baby. Like I completely understand. Like you guys know how it is. You have your first child. It's scary. You have no clue what to do. And you have all these, especially as a pregnant mom, like what to eat, what not to eat, right? And then you have your second one, then you're like, whatever, that's out the window. But so I mean, we're on really good terms with them. And for me, I think it's a really like I've grown a lot in the sense of being a little bit more creative and not having to be so just like free flowing with everything. I think Jamie's taught me a lot of that throughout our entire marriage. Like even to this day, okay, I'm getting better. Like, I mean, you want to know our personalities, go in our closet. You can see Jamie. Oh, perfectly. And then you look like mine. It looks like a hoarder's closet. All right. Like that's our personalities and I'm getting better at it. But I think when it comes to business, like he's really taught me a lot about like having a schedule and being really organized because I'm not like that at all. And for me, now that I'm taking on that role of like really planning things and making sure that's all under control, I see the benefit, and it took us a long time to get there, but I see it now and I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's so much easier when everything's all organized and like I was like, I get it. Okay, now I know why you're mad.
That's kind of the secret though too, that people ask us about. We mentioned in the beginning, like how does this dynamic work and stuff. And I honestly think that most of the people who fail in their businesses with their spouse is because they want too much of the attention, or I don't get to do what I want to do in this business, right? The approach that I was trying to always take, and each of us take towards each other, is like more supportive. It's, hey, she's being asked to speak on stages now. We have she has a speaking position out in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And she's going to speak. That's like kind of college area or whatever for content creating, right? And she gets to speak on another Zoom as well. That's for women in entrepreneurship, right? So there's all these platforms that she's getting to stand on. And for me, it's just being proud of her accomplishing those things and then moving that back to the business. Like, hey, you've created this thing you can be proud of. Like, treat it that way, don't treat it so randomly. And so just by me saying those things to her, she gets more pride with her role here in Reach Media. And like, hey, that's right. Like I do have people to take care of. I have an editor to feed or a manager to feed, put food on their table. So that higher responsibility and stuff has been ownership anyway, has been the latest.
That's so interesting because one of the services I provide is I'm a fractional chief operating officer, right? So I usually come into businesses, entrepreneurs, small businesses, and they're reaching a point where they're getting a lot of really good consistent cash flow. They're making really good profit, or they're at a tipping point with the amount of clients they're bringing on, and everything's a mess. They have no systems, they have no processes. Like their G drive is just like, they got LLC docs under the bed. Like they don't know where anything is. They don't know. They just don't know. Everything is like, I don't know. Or every process question when you're trying to develop a system or a process is, well, it depends. It's like, no, it doesn't depend, because that's not how a system or a process can be created that can be replicated by anybody other than you. Mm-hmm. That's the point, right? That's how you scale and you build a team, is you create systems and processes that don't have unique answers. Every single one has a unique answer because it's based on what's happening in your head and your decision at the time. And that's so it sounds like you guys have this really, honestly, pretty cool situation where one is a visionary and one is more of an integrator, and you're able to balance each other out. Because I mean, even one of my latest clients is like shocking. Like their success is shocking, because from the back end, I'm going, how are you doing this right now? How, and that's my job. My job is to come in and triage and plug the holes in the lifeboat, and then, okay, go, great. You outgrew a lifeboat like a year ago. We need to build a yacht, and we need to have the slip for the yacht. And then we need to be paying insurance for the yacht and all the other things. Right. And so it's really cool to hear, sort of your journey over the last few years has really been touch and go, trial and error. You have big ups, a couple lows in there, and now it seems like you're really building on something. You know, being able to swap out VAs for higher skill sets and being able to afford that. Being able to consistently afford that is a milestone. It really is.
Yeah. And then on top of doing all that, I still homeschool the kids. So then that's like, you know, a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like every year it gets a little bit easier now that they're getting older and they're becoming a lot more independent. It's really crazy. I tend to always talk to about my kids just because I'm like super proud, but just, I think seeing how much they are really involved in all of our businesses is really crazy. So like Audrey's 10, Levi is 6, and Audrey recently just picked up stop motion photography. She always asks us what type of, you know, equipment that we're using, and who are you shooting? What clients are you shooting today? Like she always wants to know everything. Of course, Levi on the other end is like, how come the brand's not giving me toys and clothes? I'm like, listen, calm down. But she got into stop motion. She asked what it was about. And then I showed her, I said, here, why don't you just download the app that helps you do it? And now she's creating small films and wants to have her own YouTube channel. And it's really amazing. She makes Play-Doh, like, you know, characters. Mm-hmm. And they're so smooth. Like I'm not even good at stop motion, and she's taken it on. And I think just us doing these businesses has really it's really rubbing off on the kids. And like, you'll ask them like, what do you want to be when they grow up? And Levi's is, I want to be a sponsored BMX rider for Red Bull. And then you have Audrey, who's very like, specific. Yeah, she wants to own a bunch of businesses and have a wildlife, like bird rehabilitator, center. Like that's what they love nature. I mean, they're awesome. But I love how like what we've been doing really rubs off on them, and like they can see the other side of like entrepreneurship, because it's a roller coaster ride, you know. You guys know it. It's you're gonna be all over the place.
I think that's part of it too, is with the family at different ages, you'll have a different view on your business, because I always thought like, how are people doing it so fast, you know? And we just happened to be spit out in this spot of life when we jumped into entrepreneurship. Our kids weren't young enough where we could just kind of leave them with a babysitter. They wouldn't really know what's going on, but they're also not old enough to be on their own, where if we disappear to the office, it's not a big deal, right? They're right in that impact age where if we disappeared for so long, it's like, are we doing homeschool today? Now we get asked questions, right? So I think one of the hardest things for us has been to sit still and just be grateful, just being present with them. Like, I can't touch my laptop. I can't look at my phone. I have to just be here, play Legos or play cards with my daughter.
Because they'll tell us
something.
They'll be like, get off your phone. We're like,
yeah,
okay.
Really? That's so crazy.
Oh, yeah.
I have a 5, 3, and 8-week-old. So I'm not in the questions phase yet. I mean, my 5-year-old is very inquisitive, always like very, very chirpy about things, very opinionated. But we're not at that place yet where he's like, excuse me, at all. And I want to dig into this a little bit more, because I think it's really, really relevant, especially for women. You know, how have you structured your days with homeschooling and with the kids at home? And do you have to, I mean, it doesn't sound like you time block a lot, I'm not going to lie, but I mean, do you time block, and do you go, I work in these hours, and then after this is homeschooling, house, dinner, like the whole thing? Because just constant conversation for my colleagues.
Yeah, so like our days really vary. And because we're in Florida, I kind of base it off of the weather. If it's crazy hot, we're not going to be outside. So it really varies, but I try to do homeschool like in the morning time. If we were up super late one night, then I'm like, okay, we can do it a little bit like in the late afternoon. And that's the freedom with homeschooling your kids. You can really be as flexible as you want. And because it's summertime, this is like honestly the time that we've been focusing more on homeschool rather than the fall or winter. We're out exploring like all the time. But I usually kind of time block it, where I do homeschool with the kids in the morning time, and then around 12 we do our meetings for Reach Media, and then I go off and I do content. Sometimes I have the kids help me, and honestly, I've even had Audrey be like, "Can you just like film this one shot of me taking this thing?" And she's like, "Okay," and she'll do it. You know, she's not a fan. She's like, "I don't want to be a photographer." I was like, "You don't have to be. I just need your help." And then of course, Levi's like, "Can I be in the video?" Like 2 different personalities. So it's like, and honestly, the kids have been really good on being really independent. And then around the later afternoon, evening time, when we're getting dinner set up, that's when we kind of shut off from everything. And it's just 100% the kids. So we cook together, we play with them, we watch movies, we take the dogs for a walk, you know, like we really try to get outside in the evening when it's cooler. And that's usually how it goes about it. Like, and the thing is too, like anytime that we are working, whether he's like doing stuff for his real estate or for Reach, the kids will always have access to us. And so we always tell them, like, you need something, you ask us. Just come in and ask, "Hey, I have a question," and we'll pause what we're doing, because you guys are always going to be way more important than what we're doing in our work. And they have been like pretty amazing, unless we're like, "Hey, we have a Zoom," like absolutely, like don't bug us unless it's like an emergency, and I'll give them something to do, or they'll be really creative.
But
And they're pretty good about it.
It does compound though, because when you're consistent about, hey, this is the time when we will do this, and we actually follow through with it, they know on the other times when we're in a Zoom like this, like they just do their own thing and they're quiet. They're not needy. They don't like ask for snacks all the time. They're not screaming at like they know, because we said after this, we will go do XYZ, and we will always do it.
Yep.
So there's no reason for them to get anxious about it. They don't get impatient because they know that that's coming. So I think intentionality has played a huge role in anything we've ever wanted to do. Even before we traveled here, we were going camping every weekend to prep them for the road, right? And so they knew, like, when it's time to travel, like you just sit in your chair and you just wait it out. And like here's all the things
Levi was too. Like, I mean, a quick like background, like we did the month-long road trip. We had our SUV and an off-roading trailer, and we literally just overland like a whole month. And Levi was 2, Audrey was 5, and like they did amazing. And everyone was like, "How the heck are you like doing it?" I was like, not gonna lie, it's exhausting, but they were like so good. And I think because like we prep them. And so with all of our businesses, we tell them every single thing that goes behind and in and about our businesses. And they ask questions like, "Hey, how do you, like, if someone wants your services, how does it go by?" And like both of them ask that. And I'm like, you're 10 and 6. Like, that's kind of crazy that you're asking these types of questions, but we'll tell you everything. And they're just so curious. They want to know everything about what's going on. We bring them to meetups if it's appropriate, like if it's a like kid-friendly place. And they're so good. Like Levi will go in and he'll be like, "What are you going to talk about, you know, with people?" He's like, "I'm going to own Airbnb." So I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, cool, bro. Like, that's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah, they do. They ask about money, you know, how to make money. And we've always said pretty consistently that if you want money, you learn how to serve people. So the more people you serve, the more money you make. The faster you want to make money, the more people you serve faster. Like that's just as simple as it is.
I love it.
If you give something, you know, it'll come back to you, and it may not be money. And so we're getting them used to these ideas really early, even when it comes to Christmas and stuff. We let them pick out the gifts so that they're more intentional with it, rather than us picking it. "Hey, this is what we got for your cousin," or something like that. Like, we let them shop and we make them think about like what they're actually getting. And again, this is just because we're in that phase of life and we're learning all these things. And I think if you think about the average person, the average adult, and their kids, their communication with their kids, right? They keep a lot of things from them. And sometimes it's kind of out of laziness. Like, I just don't want to have this conversation, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But, right. And we do that all the time. And especially when they were coming up, we had to have conversations with each other, say, like, what did we really just say to Audrey, right? Like, why did we say no? Or why did we tell her not now? And how often are we saying not now and not following through? All these little things hit a point. And this is really what has slowed our entrepreneur journey down, we feel like sometimes, but then it's so necessary. And so we always define our entrepreneur journey right now in this season as like the warm-up season. And when our kids are like self-sufficient, they're on their own, they're making decisions at least for themselves, we're just going to take off. Like there's no problems about that. And we're just being patient and trying to be 1% better every day, as much as we can. And then we know that when we hit that road, we're just going to be taken off, where some people get it in a little bit further in the beginning of their kid's life, where they have a lot of time to build something before their kid is really intentional about their questions. And I would say to anybody that's on that side of the fence, like build as much as you can, right? The kids are so resilient to your time. They want to know you're there, but you're so much more flexible. You can bring the baby with you to the office, give them all the things. You can stop, get on the ground with them and pay attention, but that's really all you need to do. They just want to know you're there, know that they're loved, and that's simple as that. When they start asking for explanations and all these things that we're in, now it slows down a whole lot more. It's like teaching your kid to put away the dishes, it's like, no, it doesn't go like that, but you have to slow down.
Oh my God. I'm dealing with this right now.
Yeah.
Like my 5-year-old keeps wanting to load the dishwasher and I'm like, bro, like I'm down. I want you to help me, but everything's glass.
Yeah.
Everything's glass.
Yeah.
And you're not 4 feet tall.
Yeah.
So like you can't, like there's a stool situation, like the whole thing. This brings up so many things. I've gone through so much of this in the last 2 years specifically. Really like the last 4 years, really. I took Cyrus, my 5-year-old, with me to the business I owned and operated for 15 years, out of an industrial warehouse for the first year of his life. And it was so hard. I mean, every day, the pack and play, the toys, making sure everything was clean. In the winter, making sure there were enough space heaters because it would get like 35 degrees. In the summer, making sure there was enough airflow, like just everything you could possibly imagine. Baby feeding, just everything. And the second baby, and now I have my third baby. And now I get to work from home, which feels like such a luxury. But building this, I had to build this. I couldn't find it anywhere. I could not find a job that would suit my family and our needs and have the ability to scale my income. I had to build it. And even now, there's parts of what I'm doing that make a lot of sense. And there's parts of what I'm doing that I'm totally stuck. Like I had a baby, I'm starting all over again. It's like I feel to a large extent, a big part of my career is I'm farming. I'm just gardening. I'm planting seeds. I'm planting seeds. I'm planting seeds because there's that period of time after, they need everything every 2 hours where you're right. Like you have time to stack. And then they become what my 5-year-old's about to become, where it's like, stop and tell him why how caterpillars turn into butterflies and whatever else it is. And always trying to go back and remind myself, because I'm such a hard charger, I get really anxious and I get really bummed when I see people moving super fast around me, knowing that I have the same ability to do those things, but I really don't. Because I look around this laptop and my little ring light and I'm like, I've got a baby jungle gym. I've got a baby bouncer seat. I've got like dishes piled up over there. I haven't even thought about what we're doing for dinner yet. Like all these things. And it's hard. So it's cool to hear you guys say intentionally, this is a hard time because we're trying to be a part of our kids' lives. And it's hard to slow down and just go, I'm so grateful I have healthy kids and they're having fun and I get to be present and be a part of their lives. It's really hard to marry the two. Like the toxic trait of the entrepreneur is to always have FOMO. Yeah. Always, 100%. Have that anxiety that you're not doing enough fast enough.
Yeah.
So, yeah, exactly. I think extending your time horizon on anything you do has been the most crucial thing for us to, like, we have coffee every morning together. I think you guys know that. We've posted about it a few times. For the last 18 years, we've met for coffee every single morning.
Early morning, even before kids, it's our thing. And to this day, like we get up way before the kids and we sit down, we have coffee, we talk about everything from our kids to business to just us, life, like.
And that's really helped to get some of that off of our chest and just really re-recognize where we're at each day, right? Like, why are we not doing this, or why haven't we acquired $1 million yet, or whatever? And it's really because, like, You have to define your version of success, right, for yourself, and especially narrow that down into the seasons of life and the seasons of success. So what will be success, 5 years from now is totally different from what it is to us today. For us today, it's teaching our kids to learn how to learn. And that's what's now. And then it'll be making decisions, I'm sure. But they get to see us learning new things. Like I dive into real estate, have no idea. We're doing, content creating and things that are a little bit more familiar to us. Then we jump into real estate and then I have to learn all over again. And they get to see me go through that pressure cooker. And we're very open about those frustrations as well. Not in a way that we take it out on them, but in a way of like, yeah, daddy's working on this thing. And I sat in this Zoom on Wednesdays, when we were doing our Zooms on Wednesdays and stuff. And I'm learning from these guys that are doing better than me or figuring it out. And they see us around people that are doing the things we want to do. And we want that to be the normal thing. So they get to see us learn, they get to see us struggle. And it actually makes it easier for us to not take out those frustrations on them, because
and like we also have time for not only our marriage, right? Because that's so important when we see each other all the time and we have a business and we're parenting, like, how do we find our time? So that coffee time is really important. And then of course, like I try to go like once a week, and I go without the kids, without Jamie, and I go free diving with my friends. And that's like my release. That one, it's an amazing workout, but that's something that like I love doing outdoor activities and being able to do a hobby without the kids. Like I'll go paddleboarding with the kids any day. Like we do that all the time. But something that's mine, that I can just go once a week is really, really important for like my mental health as well. And it's really good that we're able to like give ourselves those times and those seasons, like especially when it can get really overwhelming at times. Like you need that little break,
For sure.
Yeah. Scheduling stuff is so crucial to mental health. I'm glad you guys brought that up, because I think that a lot of entrepreneurs, we're so hungry and we're moving so fast that we actually it's like quiet the mind. Like I don't have time for that. I don't have time to focus on my mental health. I don't have time. And we're all doing things to develop ourselves. Like we're all contributing back to our minds and just growth. Landon's always telling me about these books he's reading. I'm trying to, get that going in the background, and we're all trying to improve ourselves. But sometimes it's just the grind is just brutal, and you don't take the time to go, I really need to recharge, or I'm really eating like crap, or I don't drink enough water. I haven't been outside in 14 hours. Like whatever it is, So,
we're laughing about that because we like just started this challenge between the two of us. So we were eating like crap because we were just like tired every day. So like everything that you're saying. And like, so we started this challenge. We're like, you know what, screw this. Like we're like starting to wake up a little bit later. That's not right. Like we're barely making time to like plan our meals. Like it's on the fly. And so anyway, we're like, we need to kick this into gear. So we made this challenge between the two of us. We called it the Brick Challenge. So we have 90 days to see who can have the most abs on their stomach by the end of 90 days and who can reach their weight goal by the end of 90 days. So and again, this has always been like a challenge of ours because she like loses weight like no problem. So her problem is gaining weight and my problem is losing weight. And so she always has to eat more and I can't eat a lot. So it's like, this is the hardest thing we're probably ever going to do this year. And like, so this is the next 90 days. You'll see the results. I have to lose 12 pounds.
But you have to tell them what are we winning? Like, what's the winner get?
Guilt-free $1,000 check. So like,
wow.
That is not
you
from
guys
Reach.
laugh because
That
you're
is-
parents. So
that
you
is
know what
not-
guilt-free really means.
It's not from Reach Media. It has to be like, I have to make $1,000 with content creating only, and he has to make $1,000 with his lending. Like it has to be completely our own thing.
That's cool.
Yeah. So that's what's new. As far as you brought up the eating and not paying attention to yourself, and it's totally true. Yeah. It's totally true because you think you only have time to focus on certain things, so you let go of other things. Like, well, I'm hyper focused, and we make excuses for these things too. And I think it's funny that you talk to people who are, I don't want to call it like a normal life, like when you're just stuck in that W-2, everybody knows what the golden handcuffs feel like, right? And when you're stuck in that, you don't even realize that. And when we have dinners with friends, they talk about these things. Like I just had this couple hour long conversation with all the homeschool moms, and they're just totally drained. And I'm like, what did that really do for you, like all day? But then they're asking us at the same time, how do you guys get so much stuff done? Like, how are you doing these 3 businesses? And, and I forget that just making yourself 1% better every day in every aspect of your life is so consuming. You forget that other people trap themselves and make those excuses, And I feel super blessed to be able to make those types of decisions every day. Like, am I going to make myself better, or I'm going to go to that, whatever, the golf tournament that's going to do nothing for me, really. I don't know. I brought up golf. Sorry about that, Landon. It's not a waste of time when it's the Top Golf.
Well, dude, like you guys have both touched on, Daniela touched on it, and you just hit the nail on the head. You're so spot on, is that the pressure that each one of us face every day with our entrepreneurship, our own individual businesses, and everything we're doing to get 1% better is simply a privilege. I'm so grateful every day, much like you guys are in your lives, and I'm sure you share it with each other, is like the pressure I face every day in what I'm doing from an individualistic standpoint and collaboratively with Daniela and my other business partners, is like, that's a privilege, because, I do have those dinners. I do have those meetings. I still currently work my W-2, and I'm in those meetings, and it's exactly that. They're just drained and they're exhausted, and they're asking me, how am I able to manage all of, they think that I just own a couple properties and all these little things. And it's like, okay, it's just whatever. And then, but it's so interesting how people view pressure and view adversity and view those things, where my mindset's completely shifted. I know your guys's has too. And it's like, I'm so blessed to have the life I have and the pressure that I'm facing every day. And you guys have really turned it. What's cool is like, you've integrated your entrepreneurship, your life, your work, and everything into like, it's just your life. It's a work-life integration. It's not a balance. You're integrating, you're incorporating in all those aspects. And then for you, Jamie, like your ambition going to that meetup was to learn about real estate. And so maybe we can talk on that a little bit, because, you went there, out of it came another content client in the real estate space. And that kind of kicked off the real estate world now. So I guess in the arm of that business of what you guys are doing on the real estate side of things, I guess, what are you guys doing on the real estate aspect of things, and rentals or lending and other things like that?
I think the seed that was planted going from content to reach media and social media management is very similar to where we took real estate. We thought we might want to be fix and flippers because she has an eye for design. I like running projects. That's what I was doing in the shipyard. And so we thought maybe we would integrate those things that way. But then once we started really defining what active income is and passive income, we started being able to really draw our goals up a little bit more effectively on that front. We had to have active income. So that side of it started off to be wholesale. It wasn't for me, just because some of the time constraints on the hiring and firing and the calling and just like all aspects of that dispo, acquisitions, dispo, like the entire pipeline, right? I didn't know how to do that. Like I didn't. And so I would have been learning a completely different thing. And while I gave it the due diligence, I did it for an entire year last year to see if that would be something I would like doing. Once I rekindled that idea of active and passive income, I said, okay, there's so many more branches of real estate that I can get involved in. Mm-hmm. I got into real estate, everything creative with lending. So our first property from Hawaii, I think I spoke a little bit about that before in our masterminds. Like I learned about velocity banking, and I was hooked on creative finance. The fact that you can use lines of credit to finance other things, introductory rates. Like we moved, like just for a quick short story, we moved to Washington sight unseen because I refinanced our apartment in Hawaii into a first position HELOC at a 0.4 introductory rate with the bank, and our mortgage was interest only. So our payment on our house was $80 a month.
Wow.
I moved to Washington, and I did that because I knew I wasn't going to have overtime moving over, because I had to learn their systems and how they work. And so we were able to float our mortgage there and basically get paid in overtime money while I was in Washington, not being able to work overtime. And so we bought that house. Our mortgage was $80 a month. We were renting it for $1,850, I think, at the time. And so that got me hooked. And then once we lost that property, because I was going to have to refinance it, lose the introductory rate, and then we would have been paying a couple $100 a month. That got me super fired up, because I didn't have the knowledge to learn something new at that time, because I was so busy. Because I didn't have that knowledge, I lost the most important thing to me, which was my footprint in Hawaii. And so because of that, it just threw me in this fire. Like, I have to learn real estate, because this will never, ever happen again to me. I'm never going to let this happen. And so that threw me into that wholesale, all of that stuff. I got into lending because in Washington, we had learned to lend with a few syndications and some short-term lending. I did some short-term lending. And then when I joined Sub 2, a few months after, Pace started coming out with the Gator lending program. So transactional lending was something that was on the back burner while I was doing wholesale, and then picked up again this year as kind of my full-time active income pursuit in real estate. On the side of that, it's our vision for creativity in RV parks and glamp sites. That's a pipe dream of ours. And soon to be not a pipe dream if we keep pursuing it. I built up those skills from everything that we've been doing, how to negotiate, learning creative finance. And again, this is all stuff we do on the side of what we're doing now. So it feels slow, but we know how to have the conversations now, and we make ourselves better and better. And that is the next pursuit for us, is our first RV park or glamp site. So
wow,
It doesn't feel like
that's
you're
so
that
freaking
far.
cool.
Yeah. Trying not to be we are already having the conversations in the lending space alone. I make those contacts with other private lenders. So I learn what it is they want. I get to pitch the outdoor hospitality pitch to these lenders and see if they're on board with financing stuff like that. So I'm constantly learning on what I need to be saying and how I need to be structuring these deals. But
Interesting. So like, I remember here a few months back, you at one point, I believe, had a property, an RV park, under contract when we met up here. I forget when that was. And that's just part of the evolution too, is that, many times this has happened so many times in my life where, as a part of the journey to get to the end of that pipe dream, to achieve what you're setting out for, there's ounces of, you think you did it, and you think you found it, you think you got it. All the ducks are seeming to line up until the last straw or something, and there's so many lessons that I learned as a part of that journey to get to the finish line that require you to get almost there and then start back over again, as it relates to finding the RV park, finding, for me, another Airbnb property, your sober living home. And Daniela and I are currently changing up our investment strategies, and we're educating heavily and leveraging our current tool sets and skill sets in looking into self-storage spaces and facilities, and leveraging seller financing and other aspects of things. And a lot of the same skills still apply: raising capital, operations, and it's a business, like all these aspects. And it's cool to see you go through and get a RV park under contract. And I remember seeing the light in your face and how excited you were for this, and not knowing what you were doing and where you were going. And that one not to come to fruition, but it only sets you up for the success you're going to have with the next one, knowing which questions to ask, how to evaluate it, how to look at it, and what you're doing. And so I guess maybe touch on that a little bit, of maybe the lessons you've learned along that journey of the RV park space and glamping sites and the hospitality world, outdoor hospitality world, and the lessons you've learned along the way that's going to propel you to the success when you do finally land one.
I think most of it has to do with the financing, like a lot of real estate. It's because when you want to be creative with something, there's an education process that has to happen. with anybody, whether it's a broker or the seller, right? And so learning to educate them the right way, to see the deal the right way, is very much like structuring a sub-2 deal, hybrid or seller finance, right? But also knowing what the bank is offering has been the learning point for me, because it's not just your typical homeowner loan, right? You're not competing with first-time home buyers. This is like everyone in the commercial space, and even those people can't get it because you have one niche of people that's buying up big stuff with commercial type loans. But then you're also having the mom and pops that are selling that don't have the books to justify somebody that would buy with a commercial loan coming in and buying it, because there's no cash flow, or at least it doesn't show that way, right? And so while they're trying to take up the big stuff, I'm falling in this crack I'm finding anyway, where I can pitch a creative offer to mom and pop, but then go through that education space of, hey, you're not going to get that price because like you don't have that income, but I can get you that price. It's just you have to accept the terms in this certain way that will lengthen it over time. Here's all the benefits to you, right? Like all of the seller finance talk. And then there's other ways to get those too, like sponsorships. Having a loan sponsor has been a challenge because somebody brought it up and I'm like, cool, I need to learn a little bit about that as an option. Then to come to find out, that person who's sponsoring, the banks will only accept somebody in the outdoor space who's had experience in that space. You can't be a multifamily investor and then go into RV park as a sponsor. Like you have to have experience, right? So I almost threw it out the door, but it was a spot of knowledge. And then you also have similar to Morby methods, and it would have to cash flow, and just being able to partner strategically. So not necessarily a sponsor, but somebody who has the capital that would justify getting at least a 50% loan and then seller carry back the rest, right? So some of those things that have been, I've just been kind of culminating the tools in the toolbox, so to speak, and learning how to use them better, I think has been the journey so far. And then also, you know, being able to take it slow has given me, I guess, the patience to go after only what I want. So in the RV park space, you get it mixed up a lot of times with like mobile home parks, right? Or they say mobile parks. So there's that thing that slips through where it's like, hey, I got an RV park. Cool, send it to me. And it's like in the middle of Route 66 where like nobody's going, nobody ever sees it. But, you know, the people have been there since the beginning of time. So you're like, do I really want to take over that park? Like it might be cash flow, but, you know, we got into this for just the dreamy perspective, to be completely honest. Like we want a Pinterest worthy, cool deal.
Yeah,
I
we
committed.
just want to brand it and shoot content for our own park because I just love doing that. And I think that would just be so cool to be absolutely creative and rebrand a whole park and be really creative about putting tiny homes or something unique, like a treehouse or something cool, you know, like that's the fun part aspect of it that I see all the time.
Yeah. So we committed to the creativity from start to finish. So what I mean by that is like, I wanted the deal to be creative. I wanted the story to be creative. I wanted the build out to be creative. Like that's what I want. And there's nobody that's going to convince me differently. You're not going to sell me like this park, like I said, out in the desert somewhere that's not making money. It's like, it needs to have all of these creative aspects. And because of that, I get to speak a little bit more clearly to the brokers that I speak with, and be very picky on that front. Because everything else for me, I'm already working my butt off with these other 3 businesses. So I don't really care if it happens or not, because if it does, it's going to be so much work. I'll have to probably drop something. Maybe the lending has to drop, or maybe content creating has to drop. But we already committed to that because we know exactly what it is that we want. So I think there's freedom, you know, there's freedom in that, really niching down to the things that you want versus just dabbling because somebody's dangling that golden coin. So.
Massively. I mean, this is the hardest thing. The one thing, the one asset class, the one goal. That is the hardest thing. My first sub-2 purchase was actually a property that Landon wholesaled me in Bend, and it was a condo. It was super cute. It ended up not really working out for me, but it was such an incredible lesson because I was like, I am never buying another residential property again. I'm commercial girl through and through. And at the exact same time, I had become a commercial broker in California because I was like, I want to double end this from every angle. Like, I want to know every single freaking thing. And then I have a creative transaction management company where I'm like, I can transact creatively in my sleep at this point. And, Landon and Chris just opened 2 files with us. And I think I got something like 5 or 6 files in the last 48 hours from different investors that I work with. And in my head, like, I had this moment of a little bit of anxiety because I was like, all right, here we go. Like, this is, it's a little bit of a heavy intake for 1 or 2 days. I'm like, great, here we go. But at the same point in time, I had this thought in my head where it was like, none of these may close. And that's real estate.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
None of these, I may open every single one of these and do work on them, and they may all cancel.
Yeah.
And I think just having that perspective and knowing that at the bottom of your heart, like, the biggest struggle is the one thing. And it's like being in love with that one asset class and getting to know it from all angles. But then the second thing is just being okay with the fact that no matter what happens, it might not happen. It might not happen, or it might happen and it might be like, a year later, I'm going to offload this thing. Like, this thing is not making a lot of sense right now, and that fluidity and flexibility is such a superpower in this industry. Absolutely. It is such a superpower.
Yeah.
I think it's so cool because every single time that we get into either RV parks or, glam sites or anything like that, I think one thing that really caught my attention is I'm learning so much about zoning and the activity behind, like, if the land is zoned properly, man, the possibilities are endless, and that's pretty cool because, like, I mean, I grew up with my dad being a private contractor in Hawaii for like 30 years. So I've always loved real estate. And so just like being able to like learn so much through him and through April and just being a part of the whole like real estate investing community is amazing. And I've learned so much through that, so going through our own personal experience of like finding these properties and like RV parks and hearing him talk to all of the people, it's so cool. And I take away that, like, hey, if it doesn't work out, I learned this much now. And now I know what to look for on the next one, so it's cool.
And I think that diversity too, and she's talking about community, right? Like the diversity in the communities that we're all lucky to be a part of has been really crucial to our confidence. I think because we look at so many people in the community that are doing so many different things, right? You're talking about multifamily only. I'm talking about like RV parks, and then Landon does single family and he does amazing at it. And so like anybody can do anything they want. And I think there's so much freedom in honing into that niche just because of that. Like there's something for everyone. And I think it's the people that don't know what they want that have a problem with that because they want what that guy has because it looks cool, and it only looks cool because he's so good at it, and they don't realize that skill, right? And
shiny object syndrome.
Yeah, and that's something that happens to you when you come into a community for the first time. You're trying to decide, right? And it does take that process to get you there, which is why I feel so much more confident. Like, yeah, I don't know. We go to these meetups. 90% of the people are flippers or wholesalers, right?
Wow. Yeah.
And because I have a hard time having a conversation on that front because it's not my goal, I can support people confidently in like, yeah, what are you working on in wholesale? Like I did a little bit of that, like you sound like you're doing amazing at it. Like tell me some of your challenges. And I can have an honest conversation without being swayed. Like, yeah, maybe I should get back in it, right?
Yeah.
It's more of like, hey, I'm doing lending. Like if that's something you need, but if not, like these are the people I'm after working for. Like I want to work with these guys. But if you get to that level in your wholesale business, let me know, right? And there's no competition anymore because you're confident in who you are and what you want. And I think that is like been us to the core because of our branding background. Like we define branding for all of our clients and ourselves as who you are, what you do, and how people can participate. That is like the basis of branding, personal branding. And so that's always been a backbone for everything that we do, is letting people know what we do, being confident about who we are and what we do, and then letting them know this is how you can participate, and being so strict with that no, I'm sorry, I can't get into flipping right now. Like that, I see what you guys are doing. It's amazing. That would take so much attention off of what I'm doing now, or my kids, or my family, or my goals, right? And being just very compartmentalized on your own goals, I think is very important for anybody, you know. So that's definitely brought us to where we're at now, and being consistent with who we are has, like you said to your point in the beginning, or very organic. Our journey has been very organic in that, on that front, because it's consistent with the person we are. And anytime we go outside of that, like when I went into wholesale, it was not consistent with me, who I am to the core. And so it just frustrated me the whole year, because it wasn't consistent with my being, right? It frustrated my wife, because I wasn't being the person I needed to be at home, because my attention was being grasped this way. Because I was, not because I didn't want to be there, but because I'm so busy learning a brand new thing that doesn't jive with my personality. So I
Right.
can't be who I need to be for myself. I can't be who I need to be for my family. And therefore it's got to go. You know, there's no question, it's got to go. And I think a lot of people put their goals on the side so they can entertain something for a little while, either just to prove a point to that person or to themselves, right? And
Totally.
just mean that that's not necessary. You know, you are who you are, and you can make big strides with just the person that you are. So
completely agree, man. Completely agree. I mean, I think that speaks a lot to your guys's experienced maturity and endurance facing adversity and overcoming a lot of different things that you guys have been through. I mean, I host various meetups virtually and in person, and you know, I go through and talk through, you know, a lot about what I'm doing, what I've built up, and that started all of that with one thing, right? And it's grown into building to where, very similar to you, like I'm so confident and love what I do. You, like, for me, aren't going to push me into one way or direction for me to just cut bait and stop what I'm doing. And in terms of that, right? But I see these people that come to these meetups that lack maturity, that lack direction and whatnot, but they're just coming to the meetups, which give them kudos and the courageousness that they have to show up and whatnot. And you hear that they're, you know, they're like doing this, that, and 5 different things, but they're not really doing those things. They're just kind of interested in those things. And then they hear what you're doing, and then they blow you up of like, hey, I want to do that. I want to do this. And it's exactly right. It's like, I was able to convey it in a way that it was like super exciting and enthusiastic. And because I am enthusiastic and excited about the things that I'm doing, but you got to know what's right for you and your identity and your goals and your 5-year vision, your 10-year vision, and all those aspects of your life. And you guys are freaking nailing it. And it's so cool to see you two thrive with your family, your work-life integration, the content company you're creating and the media company you're creating, and this real estate arm and lending arm. And it's all organically at your own pace and at your own discretion and direction. And it's just so cool and it's fulfilling. And I love being able to, from 5,000 feet away, 5,000 miles away, watch what you guys are doing. And I admire a lot of what you guys are doing, especially having spent a little bit of time with you. And I love knowing the methodical, very intentional, you said the word earlier, decisions that you guys make. And I spent some time privately with you, Jamie, here at the mastermind, whenever that was, a year ago, and got to know you more. And it's just so impressive what you've built thus far and where you're going. And I just can't wait to see what the end of 2024 looks like, and then where 2025 takes you guys. It's only going to exponentially grow because of the character and the integrity you guys operate with. And it's just, yeah. So kudos to you guys for what you've done.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. It's nice to be again in a community where people recognize that output, you know, because even in the communities at the highest levels that we're involved in, you know, it can get overlooked.
Yeah.
And not that we're in this for any type of awards or anything like that, but you know, it's very special coming from another operator. So we really appreciate you guys having us here and talking about all this stuff.
I think it's really cool because every time that, you know, we're always about like building relationships with people and like meeting you. And like, I'm just going to say, I talk to your wife all the time, like on Instagram. Hey, Landon, like I talk to your wife.
I have no idea.
Yeah, like literally, like she'll comment on, like I see your family grow, and I just am like super thankful to have like known and met you guys and hung out, because it's like that's what we're about. And like I just love that. I love that any one person that we meet and we're able to spend time with and hear their story and they hear our story. And next thing you know, it's like, sorry, you're like family. So you can't really get rid of us now. So like,
I just love your guys' story. It's so cool because it's so inspiring and I admire it genuinely, coming from one entrepreneur to another. And Daniela would speak the same words that I'm sharing, is like how you're existing, thriving in balancing everything at once, and homeschooling, which is something that my family wants to go through and raise our children that way. And so learning how someone who is hyper successful at doing it is doing it and being around them, we're only going to just be, around you to learn, is so cool. And so thank you for coming on today and just sharing your vision, sharing what you've done and who you guys have became, and just spending some time with us.
For sure. Absolutely. Thanks again for having us.
And it's so nice to meet you, Danielle. Like finally.
Yes. It's so great to meet you guys too. It's like last thought is just it's really weird to say out loud that what we're all trying to do is really, really, really hard. But it is really, really, really hard. And it's cool just to be around people that are trying to remain positive and just keep going, because it's the only way forward is through. So
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, guys. Well, happy Friday. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I hope we all gleaned a couple really cool lessons about entrepreneurism and just work, life, family integration, all the fun things. Thanks for joining us.
All right. See you guys.